go out with on Shabbat that would be appropriate, that would not be an issue of possibly leading to carrying. That's what's going to be, stay tuned for the next, we're going to talk about jewelry. Um, that's going to be something of discussion. Okay, we are on 54A1, top of the page. Harechilim yotzot kfulot. It says that the female sheep, they go out kvulot. The question is, what is this kvulot? I mean, they're allowed to wear, they're allowed to go out with this, and it's not considered a load. It's not considered the animals carrying anything, and it's not something we're afraid that's going to fall off and you're going to come to carry. Um, so what is this kvulot? My kvulot. So the Gemara says, "Shemachablim al yashem lamata." Kvulot is when they tie the tail of the sheep, and they tie it that it should be lower down and to cover up their naked area. Because that's when they don't want that the male sheep should not mate with them. And that is something, and let's say you could say that that might have some benefit, for the animal. Let's say it's for whatever the reason was. Maybe the animal is not have the strength to have to bear a child or whatever it is. It's considered for the purpose of, let's say, of the animal, and it's not considered a load. And that's allowed to be animal to go out on Shabbat. So that's the kufulot is something that's tied. So now tied, and good morning, Aaron. We're on 54A1.
Thank you. Good morning.
So we're saying that the animal go out with kfulot, and we're translating kfulot as something that does not produce fruit. Meaning we are saying on the one hand, is referring to tying. Kavulin, Rashi says, Loshin kavle vadla kashura. So Rashi sounds like that it has to do with tying. It's a language of tying, but at the same time, even though it has to do with tying, right? Aaron, we just said in the Gemara, good morning, Adam, that the animal could go out with these kavulo. The word kavulo, what is kavulo? Something that's tied. But the Gemara has a question. Okay, we know that the word kavulo means tied. But how do we know that it's a tying of something that's trying to prevent productivity? Because we're saying they tie, it's the type of thing if they want to tie the tail down to cover the place of nakedness of the animal in order that it should not be able, no one can mate with her. So where is it? You with us there? You got an Adam from 54A1. So where do we see that it has to do with, it's used in a terminology of not producing fruit? Maybe, we find kavul as tying in other areas, but how do you know that our Mishnah is referring to the tying of the sheep's tail down in order to cover the place of nakedness, in order that no one should mate with her? Where do we see that kavul is used in that fashion of not producing fruit? Diksiv, one of the cities that Shlomo HaMelech gave to Hiram, the king of Tzor, and Hiram sent workers and materials regarding the base of Mikdash, building the first base of Mikdash. And Shlomo gave him cities as a payment. But Hiram was not happy with the cities that Shlomo gave him. Shlomo gave him 20 cities in the Galilee area, and when Hiram went out, the king of Sor went out to see the cities, he wasn't happy. He said, "What are these cities that you gave me?" And he called them, Hiram named the cities Eretz Kovu. So the Gemara says, we find the Ktiv, it says, what are these cities that you gave me, my brother? V'yikolem, he wasn't his brother, but it's an expression. V'yikolem Eretz, he was a non-Jew. V'yikolem Eretz Kovul arayom hazeh. And he called them Eretz Kovul. He called them Eretz Kovul. So somehow, and now the Gemara is going to say, so what does it have to do with not producing, not being productive? My Eretz Kavul. Why did he name the cities Eretz Kavul? Why did Hiram, the king of Sor, why did he name the cities that were given to him by Shlomo Melech, King Solomon, as Eretz Kavul? Amar Rav Huna, Shahiv b'nei Adam shemechubalim b'kesef v'zahav. There were people that were wrapped, like tied with money, gold and silver. So that's why he called it Eretz Kavul. So if that's the case, Amalei Rava says, Yochi, if that's the case, he wasn't happy with the cities that he gave these cities, that he should rule these cities, that Hiram should rule these cities and, so to speak, own these cities. So why wouldn't Hiram be happy if Shlomo HaMelech gave him cities that had great wealth? So he should be very happy. He gave me Monei Asaf. He gave me cities, Monei Moshe, cities with great resources, of financial resources. People, money, he had gold and silver. People were very wealthy. So if the people are very wealthy, why should they be happy with that? The Gemara says in a fascinating things, because that's the most question. Because they had money, gold and silver, and what they weren't happy, and they weren't find favor in the eyes of Hiram. Why weren't Hiram happy with the gift? Moshe, I want to remind you about the Birkat Torah that we said the other day. You got it. Amalei, so Rav Huna says to Rava in, yes. The fact that that the cities with people were very wealthy was a reason, the irony why Hiram was not happy. Why shouldn't he be happy? Given that since they were wealthy and they were finicky, a certain type of, sometimes wealthy people, it's hard for them.
Spoiled.
They get a little spoiled sometimes. And therefore they wouldn't, the king always has work for the people to do. And they wouldn't be doing work for the king. It was hard for them to pick up their sleeves to
Yeah.
You got it. This page. Oh, the whole page. Yes, that's it. That page. For before the davening, you have to say Birkat Torah, and through Vayidaber, from the top, starting from the top, Asher Kiddushanu Mitzvot V'Tzvona Al Divrei Torah, until through Sama Shmiya B'nei Yisrael V'Ani Avarchem. Those are psukim that follows the brachot on the learning. So like Ralph said, because they were wealthy, these people that were wealthy were spoiled, and they were not ready to do the work of the king. The king has certain types of labor that needs to be done, and therefore they receive the word kavul used in the fashion of not being productive, because he considered these cities Eretz Kavul. This is the city that's not productive because the people are not going to work. Nachem Yitzchak Omar Eretz Chomtin, like that. The cities that they gave him, that Shlomo Melech gave Hiram, was the city, with the ground was a salty area. Now, Chomtin is a type of earth, salty earth that you would use to as a preservative to protect the fruit from spoiling, from turning into getting moldy and wormy. And here we're saying that the reason, and this explains why he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. We'll see why. What's the
Shlomo wasn't.
well, Hiram? Because again, Shlomo HaMelech received materials and workers and expert workers from Hiram to help build. And the building of the Beit HaMikdash was a tremendous project. You'll see how many thousands of people were working on the project, and it was an unbelievable, beautiful edifice, if that's the right word, that was created by Shlomo HaMelech. It took a lot of time, the project. But Shlomo HaMelech gave a reward, or I don't know, but reward's not the right word. He gave in return for the fact that Hiram sent expert craftsmen to help in the project and materials. Shlomo gave him 20 cities in the Galilee that Hiram would now be in control of, and call it colonies or whatever you want to call it. And Hiram, when he went out to see the cities that Shlomo gifted to him, he wasn't happy. He wasn't a happy camper. He wasn't happy with the gift that Shlomo gave. Now, maybe that's, maybe that's a weakness, a deficiency in this non-Jewish king who was not appreciative of the gift that he gave him, that Shlomo gave him. So now we're saying now that the land that Shlomo gave him was Eretz Chomtin. It was a salty area, and it's probably it says also there's like breaks in the ground. Rashi says, and I presume when you have salt is very strong, right? And the power of the salt maybe will break, the ground is not so smooth, so to speak. And the Gemara is going to explain why Amai Karale Kavul. Why did he call it Kavul? Kabul sounds like a country today, no?
The Kabul.
Kabul, right? Where is Kabul today located?
Iraq.
In Iraq. Okay. So my Karale Kavul. Why do you call it Kavul? The Mishtarga Bakara at Kavla. Because it was when you put your foot in it, your foot would sink into the ground, it would go at Kavla to like your ankle. And therefore it was that type of land. And Va'amri Inshi, and people said Mekabla, it's ankle deep. It's a land that's ankle deep, the law of it peri, that does not produce fruit. It could preserve fruit, but it doesn't such a salty area where the ground has cracks. What do you call that when you sink into something? Quicksand type of. It's a type of ground that's, and therefore he wasn't happy. That's why he wasn't happy with it. That's why Hiram was not happy with the gift that Shlomo HaMelech gave him. Instead of appreciating the gift and say, okay, I could use it. Morning Mordechai, I could use it for preserving fruit or whatever. I could use the ground. I could use that but yet he was not happy with it. So now the Gemara is saying that the reason why it's called kavul is because it went until the ankle. We're on 54A1, and we're discussing. We say that the sheep could go out with the kavulot, and the Gemara want to know what is kavulot, and the Gemara says kavulot is the tying of the tail lower down to cover the productive area of the animal, because when they don't want the animal, the female sheep, to no one to mate with it, they would tie the tail to cover the private area of the sheep. And the Gemara wanted to know, where do we know that the word kavul refers to something that's not to be, in order of not to being productive? And the Gemara now just gave the Gemara said, because we find by Shlomo HaMelech that when he gave the cities to Hiram, it says that over there that it was they called the cities Kavul. And why did they call it Kavul? The one shot, why is it called Kavul? And there it's referring to be not being productive. So one shot is it was called Kavul, because Kavul means they were tied, wrapped with wealth. And the reason why it was called Kavul, and the reason why, and was not productive, because the people that were very wealthy were spoiled. They didn't want to work for Hiram, for the king that it was given to, and therefore that shows you that the word Kavul is connected with not being productive. So here also Kavul is referring to tying the tail on the sheep in order that it should not be productive, should not give birth to any children. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says that the way we see Kavul is not productive by Shlomo HaMelech, by Hiram, is because the land that he gave them was called Kavul, according to Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Because, why was it called Kavul? Not being productive, because the land sunk in. It was a salty area. When you put your foot into the ground, your foot would sink down until your ankle, so to speak. And therefore that it was a land that was not productive, wasn't able to produce fruits. It was able to preserve fruits, but not to produce fruits. So we see Kavul is connected in a way of not being productive. So here also, that's what the Mishnah means when Kavulot, that the sheep could go out with Kavulot, preventing it from being productive, of producing offspring. Now, the Mishnah stated that the sheep could go out kavunot, right? We said kavunot. What is kavunot? Again, we are now on 54A1. All right, 54A1. We're on the right side of the page. Again, we had, by the way, this was when we spoke about the kavulot going out with the things that tie the tail down. That was the opinion of the Tanna Kama of the Mishnah earlier, said that it could go out with that, and Rabbi Yossi forbade that. All right, the only thing Rabbi Yossi allowed was the sheep going out with the kavunot. What is kavunot? My kavunot. So the Gemara says, "Shemechabdin oto lemelat." It's a type of garment. You hear Moshe talking about a garment that you wrap around the body of the sheep, of the lamb, of the sheep, the female, the day it's born. I like that, Mordechai. The day it's born, they would wrap a garment around the sheep in order to protect the cleanliness of the wool.
What is cleanliness?
That should be pure, clean. The white should not get the fabric, the wool of the sheep, that it should be beautifully clean, white, like like a very beautiful white that they want it to remain. And by putting the garment around the body of the sheep, the wool will grow, but it's protected from the elements because it has a cover, right, Mordechai?
Cashmere?
I don't know how cashmere is made, but I'm just saying. But this was a special, expensive. Say it again.
But what combination?
To avoid getting dirty, right? Exactly. They wanted to protect, and therefore you make the most expensive garments
The sheep.
from this particular wool because this wool, the color is very unique because it did not get dirty, and because the day it was born, the sheep was born, you put on this clothing to protect it, protect the wool, and that's the kivunot. So kivunot is a language also of, it would seem a language of, Rashi says, of tying a garment, and kedetnan, like we learned in the Mishnah regarding certain types of appearances of negate serat, right? Leprosy. Um, certain the Torah talks about se'et. If something in the skin, there's a color, if something there's a color, you see something raised in the skin, se'et. So we say kitsemeh lavan. What is this color of se'et that if a person finds in his skin? Sometimes Hashem would, in the old days, today people are not on the level, they should get such a high level, message directly, such a high level, that Hashem would show the person that they're doing something wrong. And the number one cause of this leprosy was negative speech on a fellow Jew. The other causes, arrogance, other things, stinginess cause leprosy. But the number one cause, they'll tell you what's the number one cause of heart attack, right? Maybe they'll say stress, maybe I don't know, I can't tell you whatever they say. But the number one cause of, I'm not saying that is the number one cause, but the number one cause of leprosy is negative speak. It's called like mitzorah. The leper is motzira. Even in the name of mitzorah indicates the negativity of the person. And it says that if the Torah describes certain types of signs of leprosy. If a person has a se'et, something rising white in his skin, a discoloring that's not normal. This is not a normal discoloring. This is not coming as a result of everyday life. This is a specific message from Hashem. So we say, what is that color that would be? And they bring it to the Kohen. And the Kohen will look at it and he'll determine whether it is a discoloring that would contaminate the person and would have to leave the camp and be isolated, quarantined until it goes away. By the way, yes.
Sheep, you don't put on a sheep anything to carry usually. I don't know. It's an animal or to make milk or to make fabric.
Right. But if you understand, the fabric is a business, and you want to have the best fabric. You want to have the most expensive fabric. So it's an investment. If you go ahead and just cover the wool when the day the sheep is born, to keep the wool in top shape.
Right. It's not for carrying.
Right, but that's protecting. And the Gemara is saying that garment that you put on the sheep for protecting the wool, you could allow your sheep to go out on Shabbat with that garment, even though you did not put the garment for the purpose of warmth for the animal, right? We said animal could go out on Shabbat.
Shabbat you remove it?
No. So we say we're allowed to you can let it stay on the animal. You don't have to remove it. It's not called carrying. It's not called that the animal is doing an act of work on Shabbat, right? You have a responsibility. Your animal shouldn't work on Shabbat. You can make your animal work, or you have to, don't let your animal go out and do work. And this is not called work. This type of garment, it's not called carrying. You could say it's worn by the animal in a way that a garment is worn, and maybe it also provides warmth for the animal. It's not considered, we don't consider this garment something extra that doesn't belong there, and that's considered carrying. The animal could go out with it, right, Aaron? Could go out with it on Shabbat, according to everybody. So the Gemara says, and where do we find that it is that this idea of this concept of this kvunot special that you tie it for to protect the wool? Because we have a Mishnah that says that the white discoloring is like white wool. Now, let me ask you a question. What does he mean white wool? Isn't all wool, general wool is white, right? Generally speaking. Semen lavon, Rabbi bar Abaye, semen noki. It's referring to the color. It matches the color. When you want to you want to have a paint, right? Certain color of paint. Here, the color of the leprosy is like the color of clean wool ben yomo, the wool of the day the animal is born, that you go in and you tie the garment on it so it should be able to have this high level cloak garment. Now, v'izim yotzot, now the Gemara continues, v'izim yotzot surot. We have the Mishnah mentioned, the Tanakama said, that the goats to go out surot, right? When the bottom of 54A1, bottom right. Surot means, something tied, right? Tied to the udders. We're talking about, they were tying the udders of the animal. Right? So the Gemara said, Izim yotzot surot. The Tanakama says that the goats could go out with something that's tied to the udders of the animal, whether the point is to dry up the udders and that it should not produce any milk, the animal should not produce any milk, or you tie the udders to protect the milk, which would seem to be that you actually tie like a little pouch to be able to even actually catch the milk. And the Tanakhama said that's fine. That's not considered a problem. And then we have two Tanoim that argued on that, meaning the first rabbi said you could tie the udders for whatever purpose, whether you want to dry out that the milk shouldn't be produced milk, you want the animal to become very heavy. So instead of, if it doesn't give out the milk, by drying it up, by tying it, the udders won't give out any milk. The milk will remain in the animal will become very heavy, right? Just like, if a person does not give off, but doesn't urinate, then if the water stays in the body, then they become very big, and they weigh much more. And sometimes they would do this for the animal, and they would want it to become bigger, and also I think I saw someone said that maybe that the milking process also is weakens the animal. So they did this sometimes to dry out the milk, or you could even go ahead and tie the udder, and it could go out with this tie if the purpose was to catch the milk. And then we have the next opinion in the Mishnah that says no, you can't do that. Rabbi Yossi says you can't tie the udders to dry the milk, to catch the milk. Rabbi Yehuda was a compromised position. Yehuda says if it's to dry it out, you can, but to catch the milk, you can't. So the Gemara says, Itma, Rav Amar Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. Rav says the law follows Rabbi Yehuda, which is that you could tie the udder if it's for the purpose of drying out the milk. So you could say it's more for the animal itself, to protect the animal shouldn't get weaker through the milking process, or maybe you could even say the animal becoming heavier, could be even stronger for the animal. So therefore, that's not considered. That's for the animal's benefit. So therefore, it's part of the animal, let's say, and it's not called carrying. But to make a pouch to catch the milk, that's not for the animal. Therefore, that would be considered a load. And Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. And Shmuel says the law follows Rabbi Yossi, that he says that Rabbi Yossi says you cannot tie the udder under any whether you're doing it to dry out the milk or whether you're doing it to catch the milk. So we have a machloket in between Rav and Shmuel. Who does the law follow? But both opinions, but nobody agrees with the Tanakama that says both for drying and for catching the milk at the lab. There are some that had this statement of Rav and Shmuel that they were not taking positions that Rav says the law follows Rabbi Yehuda, and Shmuel, each one was talking about a position of the Tana of the Mishnah. Rather, they were talking about the law themselves. Not that they said, not that the rabbi said, I say the law follows Rabbi Yosef, and you say the law follows Ben Zion Abba Shaul. That was the first type of way they had text they had it. The others had it that they did not say I hold Ravadia and this and another one rabbis I hold like Rabbi Zion Abba Shaul. Rather, they said the law, they said the case itself. They said what the case was. Like here, instead of saying I hold like Rabbi Yossi that you can't do it, rather the rabbi himself said you can't do it, without connecting it to the rabbi of the Mishnah. Rav Amar liyabesh mutar. Rav says to tie it to dry it out is permitted, and you can go out on Shabbat if you tie it to dry out. It's not considered carrying v'lo l'chalev. But if you tied it for the milk, you will not be able to go out with it. Shmuel Amar. Shmuel says echad zeh ve'echad zeh asur. Shmuel says it doesn't make a difference why you tied it. It's considered carrying, and you can't go out. Or either considered carrying, or you can't go out with it. It would be forbidden. Now, ikademati laha aha. Now there is a different text in Shmuel's statement. So far we have two different. We had one statement. Shmuel says the law follows Rabbi Yossi, right? You can't tie the udder for whether it's to drying it out or for the milk purposes. And then we had a different statement that Shmuel himself says echad zeh asur. Both dry, instead of saying the law follows Rabbi Yossi, he just said the case himself. He said whether it's drying or for milk, it's forbidden. And now we have some that say the following. This is how Shmuel said his statement. Shmuel was going on the Breita, right? We have the Breita. Listen to what the Breita says. Izim yotzot surot. The goats could go out on Shabbat tied liyabesh. If it's tied to dry out the milk, it could go out. Like we said, that's maybe you could say it's for the purpose of the animal. Avolo l'chalev. But you can't go out with the udder tied to catch the milk. That is the Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera. See, Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera Amru. Rabbi Yehuda ben Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera. In the name of Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, they said the following: Kach halacha. Really, that should be the law. That what should be the law? To dry out the udder, that the udder should become heavy and that should be the law. You should be able to go out with that on Shabbat, but not if it's to catch the milk. But avomi mipis, who could go ahead and tell and make a lottery to see easily yabesh, easily chalev. You have the udder tied. It's not so simple to go ahead and you have to really go ahead and get down there underneath the udder of the animal to see what type of that is tied for drying purposes, drying out the udder, it's tied to catch the milk. Of me, it's very hard to see. And since it's very hard to see, you would need like a lottery to figure it out, so to speak. So who's going to be able to see this? And therefore, since you can be told Shein Makirin, since you can't tell if the goat was if it was tied, the udder was tied to dry the milk or to catch the milk, asur. you cannot allow the animal, we're going to not allow the animal to go out on Shabbat, whether, even if it's tied for the purpose of what? Of, of drying out the milk, which really you're saying should be fine. But because people won't know, and therefore people won't know, if you're going to allow them to tie it, they're going to think you can tie it even for the purpose of catching the milk. And therefore, that's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira's opinion. And therefore, Amar Shmuel said, Amri lo Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. And some say that's what Shmuel said his law. Halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira. Now, halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira. That he's saying now this is something different than what we knew before. Meaning to say, beforehand we said Shmuel said echad ze asur. Shmuel said that both, if it's to dry out or to catch the milk, is forbidden to go out on Shabbat with this thing that's tied to it. We could have understood that maybe he holds that it's a load, it's carrying. But now we see that he holds that really there's no problem with if it's tied for drying out. The only thing is it's a marat ayin problem. It's a marat ayin problem that you can't tell. Since you can't tell, so that it would be a rabbinic issue why they can't go out when it is tied to dry. And according to the first opinion that we had in Shmuel, it could be that maybe it was a Torah concern of maybe carrying, and when it's even if it's for the purpose of drying out. And now the Gemara says, Ki ata Ravin, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he brought back with him a souvenir. What was the souvenir that he brought back from the Holy Land, Moshe? His souvenir is what he heard from Rabbi Yochanan, the Torah souvenir. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, he said in Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was like the chief rabbi, the head big rabbi in Israel. Halacha ketanakama, that the halacha follows the Tanakama, the first opinion, which is the first opinion is that the animal could go out with the udder tied, whether it's tied for the purpose of drying out the milk or even for the catching of the milk. So that is one way to learn when it's a halacha ketanakama. Which Tanakama is it referring to? We have the Tanakama of our Mishnah that said that, and that's how Rashi learns. If you look at the Rashi Tanakama, the Matnisin, the Sherbet Havayu, that permitted both cases of tying the udder, whether it's for drying or whether it's for drying or it's for the purpose of catching the milk. But that would be a big chidush, because you have two other rabbis in that Mishnah that said you can't do it for the catching of the milk. So the Rashba holds the name of Haigon Tanakama of the Braita. When he says the halacha follows the Tanakama, which Tanakama? In this Braita that says it could go out tied for drying, right? In the Braita it says for tying, it could, for drying and not for the milk. And that Braita is where he holds that it could go out, but not that it could go out with it even for the purpose of catching the milk. So that is when it says halacha ketanakama, does it mean Tanakama of our Mishnah, that it could either go out for the purpose of catching the milk and certainly to dry the milk, or is it Tanakama referring to the first opinion in the Braita where it says, like it says over here, Izim yotzot. We just had 2 lines before. Good morning. Izim yotzot liyavesh avlo l'chalav, right? L'chalev. It says that goats could go out liyavesh, but not for milk. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira says that's halacha, but who could notice it? That's where the Rajba says halacha follows that he brings the name of Hagon. That's where he could go out, but not that if it's going out good morning for cashing the milk. But just end with the point the Gemara just said that the color of you talk about serat of leprosy. You know, the law is by leprosy. If a person has leprosy, has all the signs of leprosy, the only one who can make him tamei is Mordechai, the Kohen. The question is, why do you need Mordechai? If anybody could see, he has all you check it up. It's exactly all the signs of leprosy. That you go to a Torah scholar, I'll tell you, this is everything. It's not enough for the Torah scholar to say it's leprosy. You need the Kohen. You need the Kohen to make a proclamation. Without the proclamation, it does not become contaminated. Why is that? Because the number one reason why he gets leprosy, because he didn't show appreciation for the mouth, for the words. So how do you show power to words? How does he do tshuva? We're going to show him your status is dependent on the statement of the Kohen. To look at the power of words. You need the Kohen to the Kohen's going to make you or break you. The Kohen's word that he's going to say you're contaminated is going to contaminate you, and the Kohen's word that you're tahar is going to make you no more contaminated. That's how we see the power of the word, and that's the lesson. Look at your status depends on the word of the Kohen. It's not enough in the facts on the ground that you have all the signs. That's not enough to make you contaminated. Or if the signs went away, he's still contaminated until the Kohen makes the declaration. You know, there's a family called Arfa, the Arfa family. Arfa is spelled Aleph Resh Pei Aleph, which like a Rafeh. Why is the Arfa Kohanim? I have relatives that it's Arfa, the Kohanim, because they healed the person based on their statement of Tahar. See, that's how they say that's why the Arfa name that a Kohanim is because of that. Have a great day, everybody. Okay, every word of Torah counts, Oren. You heard something. Yeah, looking forward. Yes, thank you very much. Take care. Aaron, have a great day. Ralph, have a great day.
You too, Rabbi. Thank you. You too, Rabbi.
Thank you. Now we got to have a great davening. That's the job at hand.